This video is about slowing or reversing the aging process, in particular age spots. Now when we're young, we have beautiful smooth skin with very few marks. And as we get older, we start to accumulate a number of skin lesions. Now I can't say I like this process. So I said, what can I do to slow or reverse the accumulation of those skin lesions? So how did I get oxidative damage and age spots on my skin? For most of my life, people thought I was at least 10 years younger than whatever my current age was. And up until my early 40s, I had very few marks on my skin. So what changed? Well, my career started taking off and I was working long days, sometimes 16 hours a day. That sometimes resulted in 4 hours of sleep. Well, that created some problems. One, if you want to look young, you got to sleep and you got to get enough rest. The aging process accelerates rapidly when you don't get enough sleep. Secondly, I was under chronic stress. Now, some of that was just the workload, but as everyone has in their life, some unpleasant things occurred as well, and those were stressful. So I had some chronic stress. And last, I had very little time to plan my nutrition. You know, I tell my clients all the time, the most important thing to do to be successful at nutrition is you have to plan properly. Well, when you have very little time, that becomes much more difficult. So often during the day, I'd be grabbing a protein drink or grabbing a food bar, and even though I got the highest quality items of that type that I could find, they were still processed. And I normally ate a diet of unprocessed food. So the result of all of this was an acceleration of the aging process, and one of those indicators was an increase in age spots. What are the factors that contribute to oxidative damage and age spots? There's 4 things that I've observed are the main causes. The first one is smoking. Most people know that smoking is not good for your health, and if you look at anybody who smokes regularly, they generally look older than their peers. Secondly is excessive sun tanning. Now some sun I believe is good for us and we need to get out in the sun and get some natural light, but excessive tanning can also accelerate the aging process and contribute to age spots. The third thing is processed food, and I found particularly processed carbohydrates tend to contribute to creating brown spots on the skin. The other thing is cooking food. So even if you're eating healthful food, depending on how you cook it. So if you use any type of cooking methods which creates browning of the food, so you grill food and you see those grill lines, or you fry food and that gets that crispy brown, that type of cooking creates oxidative damage in the body. So if you're going to cook food, you want to use water-based cooking methods, so steaming, poaching, etc. And you'll notice when you use those type of cooking methods, you don't get any of that browning to occur. So if those are the causes of oxidative damage in the body, how can you reverse that? So obviously the best way to reverse oxidative damage and aging of the skin is to avoid those things we just talked about that contribute to it. On top of that, I find that if you really work on your nutrition and you really work on eating an unprocessed food diet, you can start to reverse some of this damage that has taken place. When you go on an unprocessed food diet, 2 things happen. First of all, you get a lot of antioxidant nutrients, and those antioxidant nutrients help the body fight against the effects of oxidation. Secondly, if you're eating an unprocessed food diet, you're not putting things into the body that are contributing to more oxidative damage. So when you make those changes, along with obviously exercise and getting enough rest and sleep and those other things, you can start to anti-age, or you can start to reverse some of the damage that's been done. Most people are prematurely older than they need to be based on their lifestyle. As I previously mentioned, I was not happy about the increasing amount of age spots on my body, and I decided to do something about it. When you think of the 4 factors that I discussed earlier, I wasn't smoking, I wasn't tanning, my diet had gotten off somewhat, my cooking methods were generally within line. So it was mostly nutrition that I could address. You know, I could work on getting more sleep and reducing stress. That was something I could address as well, but it was mainly diet. So I decided to conduct 3 different experiments to see what happened. The first experiment I decided to do, I would eat an unprocessed vegan diet. Now, I had eaten vegan diets during the time that I was getting the spots, but the food was not entirely unprocessed. So I decided the food would be all unprocessed, and one other thing, I used to eat a lot more raw food in my diet. So I decided that about half of the food would be uncooked, and I would then get a chance to see what that would do to the oxidative damage. The second experiment I conducted, I decided to eat Live It nutrition plan and eat that exclusively unprocessed. Now that diet is an omnivorous diet. It includes animal-based food and plant-based food. I decided to apply the diet completely unprocessed. The last experiment I did was to take an antioxidant supplement for a 4-week period. I didn't follow a particular type of diet at the time, but my food intake was relatively healthful. There were some changes from the supplement, but not nearly as dramatic as those from changing my food intake, which just reinforces what I've always taught people. Food is the best place to get your nutrients. I believe that supplements do have benefits and can be used to improve health, but nothing is as powerful as food. In conclusion, it can be seen from the results of the experiments that oxidative damage and age spots can be reversed with proper nutrition. I'm Jeff Riley for Fitness Innovations.